Okay, we will start. In any case, if you will have any question, just raise a hand. Below you have a option to raise a hand so I can stop, follow you, and answer your question. If not, we can answer your question at the end of the presentation. So whatever you will decide, let's make this webinar interactive, not just me speaking and you listening, because much better results we have in learning that way. So, okay. So let's see what we have for today. I decided to dedicate the complete webinar for the intellectual outputs just because of the reason a lot of people does not understand how in the process of developing the project you define your intellectual outputs. I am just now in the situation where I need to develop for some of my clients to develop intellectual outputs, and when I try to justify, then I don't have material for justification. Why we are doing these intellectual outputs? What needs they are fulfilling and why we are doing that. So we will go over that, the process, and we will definitely try to figure it out what is the best way to prepare intellectual outputs for Erasmus Plus project. I need to say that this process allowed me to practically get more than 80% of approval rate on Erasmus Plus project. So let's dive in. So today I'm answering your questions. What you need to describe in the intellectual output and what is the PERT diagram of the activities. It is very funny about the PERT diagram. I'll describe later because PERT is one of the most important diagram in the project management, but practically nobody is using it here in the Erasmus Plus project. So I'll try to explain why I'm using it and why it's so important when you're developing this. So this is the third webinar in the row just dedicated to developing the project idea, and this part will be dedicated how to easily describe intellectual outputs, and we will try to talk the complete process about this. So let's again back to basic because I think it's very important. So as I said, we need to organize data in the application form in a way that your brain can develop new ideas. So those little particles in the application, we need to put into the structure. And this is my structure, which I follow for a very long time. I will post in a few days different development stages of this structure. I think this is the fourth or fifth version of the same structure, and you will see how this was evolved during the development of this. So in the first 3 webinars, we already discovered what is the problem, causes, the consequences, what is the evidences. We will be discussing the target group and the final recipients, and why I'm telling that the final recipient of the target group is different than just the target group, and why I'm doing this. We've been discussing about needs analysis. We were already discussing approach and innovation, and today we will discuss intellectual output and activities regarding this. So for all those steps, I developed tools for those development. And those are parts for intellectual output. So we will try to find today the way how to develop intellectual outputs based on the needs and analysis for different target groups in your project. So this could be, for example, for the teachers, one, and needs analysis for the teachers, and then in the final recipients, and needs analysis for that final recipient. So first, understanding what is intellectual output. It is intellectual output is sometimes referred also the results of the projects, and I will change that term during the presentation, so be aware of it. By the Erasmus Plus guide, intellectual outputs has to include tangible deliverers. What does mean tangible? So this is the something you can get into your hand. So something which will stay after the project ends. This is the easiest way to understand what is the intellectual output. It is something tangible. So someone else can then get it and put into, you know, his process, her process to improve. Needs to be also substantial in the quality and quantity. So we will need to have also the indicators. Indicators will be the next our webinar, how to create the indicators for the Erasmus Plus projects. It needs to contain the element of innovation. Of course, if your project will not be innovative, very difficult to be funded, and innovation is very part of these tangible deliverables. It needs to contribute to general objective of the project. Of course, if we describe our problem and we know how to do it, it cannot be something else. It should contribute to the general objective and should show potential impact. So if you will follow my process from the beginning and end, you will just need to define this. All of this will be already included in the project. So follow the process, how to start to develop intellectual outputs. Okay, also in our Erasmus Plus guide is what can be intellectual output. For example, an approach or a model to solve some kind of problem, could be a practical tool, could be a product, handbook, maybe curricula, e-learning tools, could be research report or studies. So research report or study is something different than a needs analysis. Needs analysis, you need to start your project. This is a research report which already based on some basic initiative, basic knowledge, and then you're doing studies in the project. So this is different. Can include good practices, guides, or case studies from the past, evaluation reports, recognition certificates, so how to recognize skills, for example, or vocational skills, or national qualification framework certificates if you go outside of the country. So this is the first time I'm explaining intellectual outputs in my kitchen approach. I'm telling kitchen approach just because it's very easy then to understand why we need that. So when we are cooking, at the beginning, of course, we have meal wishes. All of us have different ideas what we want to eat today. And then based on that, probably we will define our lunch. And after that, we will go to the cooking. But for the cooking, we already have the recipes. So this is very important. The similar, practically the same is when you develop intellectual output. At the beginning, we have needs. So we cannot start without needs. So before we need to have very good defined needs. And then based on that, we will develop intellectual output as we develop lunch. But intellectual output needs to also have activities to develop intellectual outputs. So this is the same way. We have a needs, intellectual outputs, and how we will develop intellectual outputs the same way. We have first meal, lunch, and how we will prepare that lunch, how we will develop that lunch. So this is totally the same. But you need to really take care about this back loop. This back loop is very important. Activities needs to be the way that intellectual output will be developed. So you need to take care that these activities will prepare this intellectual output. The same way, if your recipe will be not good, your dish will not be the same as you proposed at the beginning. So activities needs to respond to the intellectual outputs. And the second loop, very, very important, and every evaluator will look at it. This intellectual output needs to fulfill the needs. So in the beginning, if we describe, like in the previous my webinar, that our intellectual output will do something for the obese kids, these results definitely needs to help these kids to fulfill their needs. So intellectual output needs to respond to the needs. So I will later also describe next time maybe how this intellectual output should be described in the text. Now we are doing overview of that. So in that intellectual output description, definitely you need to say which needs do you fulfill, how you will develop this. I also describe my innovation for that specific intellectual output. So for every intellectual output, I describe a new innovation for doing that. So this is very important. So first, always define the tangible results. What will be your intellectual output? It will be manual, will be guidebook, will be course, will be training material. So you will need to know what you will develop, and then you prepare an activity how to develop these results. So always two steps: define the results, define the activities. It is also very important because based on that activities, then you can define your budget. I saw so many different projects where was in application defined 200 man days for first partner, 200 to second partner, 200 to third partner. That means that nobody really calculated how much time do you need to define these activities. One of my future webinar will also tell how you prepare very good project budget in 1 hour, really in 1 hour, if you will follow all those steps I already defined until now. So, what is structure of intellectual output? So, always you need to, at the beginning say, as I said here, tangible results activities. And also when you describe it, again, what is the results? For example, here we had manual of 50 good practices on how to involve students in more digital reading. And these are the steps how we will prepare this manual. So, for example, creating methodology, collecting 50 good practices around the world, evaluating these 30 best practices, because sometimes you'll get good practices and they will not be good. So you need to have the evaluation strategy prepared. How you will evaluate is this is good for your target group and this is good for their needs. So based on that, we will try to define 30 best practices, and then we will prepare the instruction how to implement this into the school. And of course, final easy to use guide. So all of these activities needs to have all those points. How you will define, it needs to show the quality assurance here. As I say here is that evaluation also needs to have the system how you will implement. Implementation is not part of the structure. It's just instruction, for example. So implementation is not part of the intellectual output. It is very important. So what is not allowed as intellectual output? For example, it is not allowed to create website, blogs, wikis, newsletters, because this is part of your management budget. So this is not in intellectual output. You cannot promote products in your intellectual output because this is also the part of the management budget. Analysis of the problem we are solving. Needs analysis. Why not? If we said that this is very essential for every project, why this cannot be intellectual output? It's a very good reason. you need to already develop your needs analysis before you start to write your project. What if you will start the project, you do the analysis, and you figure it out that the problem does not exist? So that's why you cannot develop needs analysis. Of course, virtual cooperation, local project activities, events, meetings, teaching activities, this is not part of intellectual outputs. What is also not allowed as an activity, for example, promotional activities, videos about the project. You cannot make videos about the project, about what is your project. You can do the videos about one topic into the intellectual output. Also, translations. It is very funny because some of the national agencies allows translations, some of them does not allow translations in intellectual outputs. Sometimes you can make the translations into external cost, so extra cost. So you need to really have a good communication with your national agency to see if the translation is part of the activity or not. So wherever you will apply, try to find out this. In general rule, I don't have any translations in my activities because it's much easier to do differently. So also management task and organizational task cannot be part of the activities of the intellectual output. So now I will describe 3 different steps to define good intellectual output. So first step is define needs and target group. If everything is okay, you already have this done. So if you went to my website and download my template to create this idea development template, you already know this table. So first you need to define who is affected and whose problem we will solve. So for example, we have a digital reading problem. First target group is students, second target groups are teachers. And then you try to define what are their needs. And of course, evidence links if you have. For example, students cannot find information, don't know how to find information. They don't understand long text, cannot extract information. So those are the needs. And of course, for the teachers, they don't know how to teach them those skills. So students have one needs and the teacher have another needs. And based on that, you need then define. So as you see in that sketch, one target group has one needs, and this is one section, and another have another group, and this is another section. So definitely you need to follow that complete sketch and then try to prepare this text into the table. So another example. For example, here we have 3 target groups. You can have as many target groups as you want, but I suggest most of your projects, you have 2 or 3 target groups, not more. So for example, students, teachers, and parents. What are their needs and what are the evidence for those needs? If you prepare your projects, I mean, the idea template very good. Based on such a template, such a table, you can then prepare the text very easy. So that's why I was saying before, it is very important that you have the way how to describe your project easy. So that was first step. Another step is how to define approach to solve our problem. So first, we have a need, and then we need to define what will be our approach. So this our approach is general few steps how you will do everything. So here I'm describing at the beginning we will gather good practices, then we will develop teacher training, then we will have learning teacher training to test this teacher training. Then we will prepare the lessons for the students, and then we'll have students' mobility, And then we will implement those teacher trainings into the schools, 5 schools in every country, and then we implement lessons for the schools, and we have 2 eTwinning webinars. So this is general approach how we will do our project. Easy, just few bullets. Don't start in the idea development template to develop longer text. Here is idea to have just few lines of text, nothing else. So step 3, this is the core of the definition. So first 2 steps were prerequisites. So this is what you need to have before you start intellectual output. And here you define the results. So this is one example of my results. This was, for example, first is the all outputs. This is output 1, output 2, output 3, and below that we have the activities. So here we have, for example, interreligious studies and peace building master degree, which we want to transfer into the level which will be understandable for the primary school teachers. So choosing topics, adaptations, master degree, analysis of the scripts by the expert. Again, as I said, always try to find a way how you will prepare the quality assurance. So the quality of your intellectual outputs needs to be on the high level. So this way, the analysis of the script by the expert, but someone else means that whatever we will prepare, someone else will try to find and give me feedback what is not good. So we are preparing very good quality assurance. And of course, this is also paid if we prepare it that way. And then we will incorporate the changes and make a final education template. So this was one intellectual output, another training models for the teachers, preparation of training outline chapters, detailed training program, how to prepare training activities, and update the training and test it in the LTT. After test. Why is here after test? Because LTT is learning, teaching, training cannot be part of the intellectual output, and we too clearly describe that we are not trying to fund LTT also here. So LTT is somewhere else. That's why we're saying updating the training models. And when you try to describe your intellectual output, you need to also say, after this development, we will have separate LTT activity, and after that activity, we will update this training model. It is very important. You also need to test your intellectual output. I testing it that way that at the end of all the activities, I try to define what will be the result of that activity. If we cannot define the result of the activity, maybe this activity is not needed, or activity should be rewritten or should be merged with someone else. So I always try to, when define the activities, for example, choosing topics for the master degree, result will be defined structure of the educational content. When adaptations of the master degree, adapted scripts. So every activity should have its own results. Why is also that very important? Because you will then take the same table later when the project will be approved and put in your project management system, and when you try to figure where you are in the education, I mean where you are in the project, you just easily said, yes, we done this, yes, we done this, yes, we done this. And this is very easy to follow where you are in the project. So project management, so whatever you will prepare here, it's already prepared in a way that you can use for the project management. So because I'm doing so many projects every year, I don't do it in a way that after the project is approved that I need to develop all those texts again. All those tables is useful for later as well. What is then PERT diagram? So this is activities. PERT diagram is nothing else than connection between your intellectual outputs. So PERT diagram will give you overview of your project activities. You will see how the activities are connected. And there is also the place for different additional information you cannot put into the intellectual outputs, like expected time for development, number of attendees, who will do that, and so on. So this is, for example of the PERT diagram of activities I had from one of my projects. So I said intellectual output 1, activity 2. We will have survey, and this survey will be in person and will be online, and the result will be problems and needs we have. And based on that problems and needs, we will do identification of areas of the problems, and we also select the good practices which will lead to the selection of the best practice, selection of the best examples of good practices from survey, and that will be manual good practice. So this is how all of your activities will be connected from the beginning to end. And you can also see, we will start with first transnational meetings kickoff. When we will develop this, we will start with the transnational meeting 2, and we will describe how we'll prepare all those methodology. Then we will go to the training, and then we'll have transnational meeting here before short-term learning activities. And we also said 3 teachers from every country. So when we will try to really put this into the practice, you will know how many teachers you need to do, when we will be that. So you have everything prepared for 2 different reasons. First is you can easily describe your project because you see everything. And the second, when you'll start the project, you will have everything ready to start. Nothing to develop in the kickoff meeting. A lot of my colleagues tell me, no, don't do it. It's very easy. It's very straightforward. Everything is linear. Maybe. But if you will develop 10 projects and have 5 approved, and then we have 5 already in development, you will definitely mix all together and you will never know what you're doing. With this part, I can go with all my project, you know, in the past, and I can describe you in the detail what we have done. Very easy. So this tool is one of the most important part of the development of intellectual outputs. So this is also one of the PERT diagram is from the time of Leonardo da Vinci project. So those was projects before the Erasmus Plus, but this was the same. We said at that time working package. It is still working package if you're working with the Horizon 2020 or similar projects. And then first we will do the search and analysis and what we will do this. And there is also the milestone, when we will do what. Definition of the system, you can see this is from the year 2014. I can still find everything here. I can still describe what I have been done. If you will have just the text, you know how much time you need to read it again and try to figure it out what you need to do and when you need to do. And here is just one paper. This is like a mind map. It is very essential tool. Without it, I don't do any project anymore. And this is why sometimes I'm so successful with how I need to develop the project. I really have the clarity how I need to do every step in my project. So when you develop the intellectual output, it's not just about what you will do, is also how you will connect all those steps together to really have these results which you need to describe. And this is then much easier to describe. So why I need diagram of the activities? you can define your complete projects in one sheet of paper, and it's a great tool to understand your project. And is also the base for all next task in development, writing and definition of indicators. We didn't touch this, will be one of my next project, how you define the indicators for your project. So these indicators are very important because this is your contract. If you will not reach the indicators, you need to return the money, and you know how difficult is this. And you will need PERT diagram for the kickoff meeting. In the kickoff meeting, you need to describe, you as a developer of the project, you need to describe in the details everything. You know that sometimes your partners are not so participative in the development. So you need to describe the complete project from the beginning to end in that part. So this is very essential to have. So if not, this is one of the examples what I need to do. You need to read your application again and build the PERT diagram on the kickoff meeting. And I need to tell you, this is the half day of work on the kickoff meeting. And this is a lot of work. And everybody needs to say, yeah, this is good, this is not good. You need to reach again to some kind of consensus. Then you need to try to figure it out. This is also part of the indicators. So don't do that. Define your PERT before. It's very easy to use. To develop it, you can define the text and you will know everything about the project for the later. So this is how I'm doing, and that is everything about project. And I reached 30 minutes as I promised at the beginning. So any questions, any special questions, so I can go and ask something. If not, in any case, you can go back to my website, projectswithigor.eu. You can really figure it out, all the complete process, because all my recordings are there, and then I can really find help with that. So I need to also announce here that in the future I will try to organize a closed group on the Facebook, really dedicated just to development of the Erasmus Plus project. So you are really invited. Okay, I see that I have in chat. Okay. If there is something you still want to see, to write, let me know. Write me on the Facebook, write me email, and we can talk about it. In any case, what I suggest to read all my notes when I'm developing the webinars, and you will see that it's very easy to develop the project if you follow these steps. So follow steps and you will see that it's much easier to do.